Hey everyone, it's Todd from Guilla Games, and I wanted to give you a little peek into my workflow. I've been creating these guitar models for the game, and just there's so many of them. So I kind of got it down to a science, a nice routine here. So I'm in Blender here, and I'm playing this back at 4 times normal speed. I started in Google, found a reference picture of the model that I'm looking for, and it was the Ibanez GSR 200. And bring it into Blender as a reference image. And then now obviously you can see here there's a lot of different models already in this file. So I have a lot of pieces I can pull from that are similar. You know, pickups are pickups, and tuning knobs look very similar to each other, and bridges and knobs. And but one thing that I have to do often is build the body itself into the unique shape of the guitar. So what I'm doing here is I create a plane and then rotate it so it's facing the same orientation as the rest of the bass, and then basically trace the outline of the shape of the guitar. In this case, it's a bass. It's a little time consuming, but this part is actually pretty satisfying to do, because you get to see the shape, you know, take form as you're working on it. It's always nice getting some instant visual gratification when you're working on things, because sometimes it just becomes grueling to just continuously work on things over and over. Same process. You'd like to see some progress. Almost done here with the main outline. What I'm doing is I'm selecting the edges and subdividing them to add more control points, or more vertices. To add more detail to the curves. And then at the end here, I want to make those two even, and then those two even on the x-axis. Okay. Now I want to see, what does the back look like? There's some curvature to the back. I need to find a nice reference image. There's one. See the indent. What I do is make a copy of that main outline, hide it, and now modify the copy so that it follows the indentation of the curve. Now I didn't bother using a reference image here. I'm pretty much just looking back and forth at it and kind of eyeballing it, because it's the back, so you don't really see it that much in the game anyway, so it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, none of this has to be perfect, as long as it just looks good in the game, because when you're playing the game, you're not comparing it side by side with the actual guitars anyway. Okay, so I make a copy, make some copies. Now what I'm doing here is I need to make that kind of curved face on the front there. So I triangulate the main front polygon. Now I'm trying to recreate the polygons so that they line up with the edge of that curve. And it didn't cooperate automatically when I triangulated, so I have to get rid of some of the polygons and then manually re-add them where I want them to be. Get rid of those so that they are more lined up, see, nice and straight all the way down. Now I just have to grab some of those points and start moving them down little by little until it forms a nice curve. And again, this is eyeballing it. It's not going to be exactly the same as the real guitar's curve, but as long as it looks good. Now I want to reform all of those triangulated polygons into a single polygon, because it makes it easier to work with, especially when I'm trying to select the edges. So now what I'm doing here is you see 3 layers there, and I'm going to make a 4th one. I'm trying to just tweaking that curve a little bit there. Okay, so position that one, then make a copy and position it down there, and then the back one, position it right where the back is. So now I have 4 outlines basically and I can create the skin in between them all. But see, there you go. Now sometimes you get one left in the middle, so I had to manually delete that. And then you have to triangulate some of these quads because you don't know how they're going to auto triangulate when you export it to Unity. So now I want to get rid of some of these extra polygons, so I'm combining those 3 polygons in a row, those 3 quads in each one of these all the way around. Almost there. Okay. Now the next step is we wanna bevel all of those hard edges. Well, actually, first we need to dissolve all those extra vertices now that are left over from combining those quads. We don't need those vertices in there. So I'm selecting all those. Okay, and then just kind of tweaking this curve a little bit so it's a little bit more curved instead of just straight across. Again, just eyeballing it, see how it looks. Okay, now we want to select the edges, all of the sharp edges that we want to bevel so that they're rounded off, make it nice and smooth. And the first few tries at this didn't work right. So I got some of the faces are facing the wrong way. So I had to fix that. Try again. Reselect all of the edges. Try again and realize that something doesn't look right there. Okay, I need to triangulate that. Okay, try again. Select all the edges again. And see what happens this time. Okay, looks like there's a little issue there. I need to triangulate those. Just having a hard time with those quads. Reselect all the edges again. Do it, and it looks good as long as I don't go too far. Add an extra segment, and now it comes to trying to get the shading right, marking it sharp where it needs to be. I still don't like it, so I'm insetting those main faces a little bit so that when the curving happens, it still looks nice and curved on the edges, but sharp, or nice and flat on the front and back. Okay, looking pretty good now. Now let's look at the headstock. I think that's what I'm doing here. Oh no. What I'm doing is I duplicated another base that has a different body because I want to start by using its neck and hardware and headstock. So I deleted the body from it. Now I need to figure out how to connect this body with the headstock and make it look right. Now I noticed in the reference picture that it's actually really rounded right there in that spot. Which if I had noticed that before I beveled, that would have it would have been a little bit easier. But I'm trying to figure out how to combine this corner here so that I can curve it off. Trying a few different things that aren't working. Let me just, I'm gonna combine, merge those vertices into a single one so it makes it more of a regular corner again. And then I can bevel that. And I have to just move those points down so there we go. And then triangulate those. And that's about it. Take away some of those sharp edges. not too bad from the front. On the back it's not perfect, but you don't hardly ever see it from the back anyway. Now I'm positioning the knobs that I copied from the other base, and the pickups, doing the knobs first. Now I'm copying the pickups from this other base because they happen to be the same style of pickups that this base needs. Need to be scaled and positioned to match the reference. Now I noticed that the strings aren't lining up on the model with the reference, so I'm going to rotate the reference image so it lines up with the strings. And then I know the position of the knobs and pickups and stuff are more accurate of where they should be on the model. The depth, make sure they're not too far in. Okay, now I need to work on the headstock. That match. It's kind of close to start with, but you can see that the top end of it is a different shape and it's narrower than what this model currently has. So first thing I need to do is isolate those tuning knobs, get those out of the way, put them in a separate object. So I can just work with the headstock here without affecting the knobs yet. Adjusting the curve here to match the reference, or at least come close to it. You know, again, it's not perfect. And I noticed when I look from the side, it looks all jagged, so I had to fix that. And this is just eyeballing it to. It's really hard to get things straight in a straight line when it's at an angle in Blender. I don't know. I'm not a Blender expert. If anybody is a Blender expert and knows how to align a bunch of vertices at an angle, let me know. Make a comment down below. Okay, looks not bad. So get those tuning knobs back out there and we'll start positioning those. Kind of eyeballing it at first. Setting the rotations. You have to set the rotation anchor point in the middle so that I can rotate around that. Move them more into position. And then check the depth here, make sure that they're sitting properly. Okay, now we're getting ready to combine them, so I had to make sure all of the parts had the same named UV map and everything in the model uses the same material. I created a new material just for this base, the GSR 200. Now I'm doing the UV mapping. Since I took some parts from another base which has different positions that conflict with the other UV map from other parts, I need to move some things to unused parts of the UV map. And one thing I like to do, I notice that all of the little screws on these pickups are exactly the same and they're all spread out, but I like to conserve space and just have them all use the same part of the map so they just all overlap in the same part of the UV map that I put there. Now I have to pick everything else from there and just put it up into a big empty spot, and I'll worry about moving that texture part up to that spot a little later on when I'm doing the texturing. Okay, now I'm getting ready to unwrap the body that I modeled. So in order to do that, I first mark seams around it so that the front and the back are one section, or are each of their own section, and then the side going around it is a separate section. I like to do two separate sections, so I do two seams on the sides because one section by itself is too long. Generally putting these in the same scale and position as the existing UV map, because I reuse as much as I can from previous models. It makes it much easier. Putting everything back together again, and I notice that the neck overlaps with the body there, but I have some room up there, can move it up a little, and I have room down here to move this down, no problem. Spaced out. Okay, now I'm exporting the UV map so that I can use it as a template in Photoshop, so I know where everything is when I'm moving things around in the textures. And then I'm exporting the base model itself as a FBX file. Go into Unity, start creating materials and textures for this new model, and you can see what I'm doing here is I'm just copying textures and materials from another similar model as a starting point and renaming them so that they go with the name of the base that they're now associated with. Okay, I see there's 5 different colors of this model, so I'm just gonna start making some materials for each color. Okay. All of them are solid blue except for the transparent red, which shows a wood grain. Don't worry about that one last. There I am creating prefabs for the models. In Unity you can create a prefab and then create variant prefabs. So what I do is I create a base prefab for each model and then a variant of each one of those to represent each color, so that if I make any model changes or collider changes or anything like that, I only have to do it in the base prefab and it automatically affects all of them. Okay. Here I am loading up the UV map that I exported earlier, putting it in the file so I can see. Now I see I had to move that neck up. Let's trim out that extra that overlaps with the body there. Looking at the headstock, what the logo looks like on the headstock. See if I can find a nice clean logo for that. There we go. Put that in there. Now I always make the logo a smart object in Photoshop so that I can go in there and clean it up as much as possible, and then I can scale it in the main texture as much as I want without losing any quality. Adding the sound gear word. And there it is. Now I just have to scale and position it. Now I suddenly noticed, oh wait, the headstock on the UV map isn't the right shape. I forgot to unwrap the new headstock shape. So here I am doing that and realized really I only have to do the front and the back. The sides are pretty much the same, so just did the front and the back, reposition them. And I noticed this new one is taller than the old one. It doesn't fit, so I'll just put it on the side. I got room there. And then this one put roughly in the same spot as the old one. Re-export that UV map. Re-export the model. And now in Photoshop, open the new UV map, drag it into the color texture, and get rid of the old UV map. So now I can see where I need to put things. Okay, I'm looking at it so far. I noticed that the machine heads need to be chrome. They look pretty black right now. Plus, the headstock needs to be fully fleshed out with the metallic and shininess texture. Now, it's kind of annoying in Unity. The metallic and shininess textures on the standard material are combined into a single texture. So you have the grayscale of the RGB is the metallicness, and then the alpha channel is the shininess. And it's really hard to work with the shininess because it's an alpha channel. So a lot of times I have to copy it, paste it into a regular layer, work on it, and then copy that and put it back into the alpha channel. So here I am just doing different things that I need to do, trimming that. I gotta include that part of the headstock in the black. I want these tuning knobs to be chrome, so they're gonna be very metallic and shiny, so I'll crank those up. And same goes with the bridge. It's also chrome, so I'll crank that up. Metallic and shininess. And if I save the color texture with the UV map layer on, you can see it in the preview there. Okay, I'm looking at where the pickups that I copied from the other model. I need to find the texture for that so that I can copy it and move it into the new position on my new texture. Okay, this texture is kind of a mess when you just look at it. So I'm kind of guessing here based on what it looks like where the pickups are. And then just kind of lining it up where it looks like it should be. Copy that screw. Now I have to do the same thing for the metallic and shininess map. Now getting this position in the same position as the color one means it's easiest to do if I copy the color layer into the metallic one and then use it as a guide and then get rid of it when I'm done. You can like make the layer 50% so you can see how to align them up by nudging them around with the arrow keys. Get that screw all shiny and metallic. Okay, see where we're at? Those are the textures we don't need anymore. No, and I also need to copy the part of the normal map over too. Oh, the machine heads, we want those to be bright, shiny, not black. Okay, there we go. Oh, same thing with the bridge. See, the bridge is black right now. Here we go. Make that white and shiny. There we go. Okay, now let's take care of the normal map part of the pickups. Copy that, put that in here. And again, in order to get the positioning right, I copy the layer from the color texture, make 50% transparent, line it up, get rid of the color texture. Delete part of this that I don't need. Just to clean it up. Copy the screw. Okay, merge everything together, get rid of the UV map, save it. It's there. I had the layering position on the color texture wrong, so I had to fix that. Okay, now I want the body color, the body metallic shininess to be more shiny and less speckly. I had that speckly shininess for a different model of base. It's more of like a speckly matte color. So I want it to be just more glossy, so that's what I'm doing here, is adjusting that. And then the pickups themselves, they're too metallic and glossy, so I need to adjust that here. Part of it is the pickups here are too bright color. They're supposed to be black. So I'm just selecting the metal dots that are in the pickups because I don't want to affect them. So inverse the selection and then make everything else darker. Starting to look better. Still a little shiny. So I'm gonna adjust shininess here, the pickups. And I have to do a similar thing with, I don't want the dots affected, so select them all, inverts the selection, and then only affect the rest of it. Get darker. Looking better. I noticed that the knobs should also be more chromy. Looking at those reference pictures, you can see they're very chrome knobs. But I'm setting some color here, making the blue, using the reference image as the color picker, and creating some more of the prefabs for the different colors. There we go. I'm going to fix the chromeness of the knob here. That's where the knob is on the UV map. That's the color map. That's the shininess, metallic map. Oh, okay. Here's the color map. Get lighter on the color map too. There we go. Looks better. Creating more copies. Now that I have the texture laid out well and all I have to do is change colors, I just duplicate those as a template. Set up the other materials with those textures, and then set up the other prefabs with those materials. Creating the white. Now the white, you see, is like, it looks really, really shiny, almost chromy. So it's too reflective. So I'm looking at it to see how reflective should it be. Just reflective, but a little less. It's not like perfectly chrome. Okay. Just worrying about the colors first, and then I can do the. Here we go. We'll adjust this reflectiveness, shininess, so it's a little less shiny. What that does is blur the reflections, so it doesn't look perfectly like a mirror. See, that looks better. More natural. Less like a mirror. It'll look pretty good. Okay. Now, the last one is this transparent red, which has wood grain instead of solid color. So I have to get a wood grain, and I know there's other guitars that I've used that have wood grain. Here's Gibson SG. So I'm going to copy the wood grain from that. Of course, I have to position it and everything so it works in this UV layout. Do this section for the sides. And then get ready for the face and back. Trim the extra that I don't need. Then I'm going to merge them. And then make a copy of that image so I can use it as a reference while I'm adjusting the color here. Close enough. Set up the materials and textures, and there it is. Okay, now that I have all the prefabs made with all the textures and everything, now I have to create all the model data, the instrument model data. This is what I'm doing here. And then each one of those, I link the prefab to the prefab inspector. Down here in the code, I comment out the line that randomly decides whether an instance of a instrument will appear in a music store, because I want it to definitely be there when I'm testing, so that I don't have to mess around with trying to find it. This is my home. I'll show you that in a little bit later, but as I've been building these things and testing them, I've been hanging them all up in my home. Not the starter home, it's one of the extra ones you can buy. Okay, so here I am in the store looking for all of them, and what I'm doing here is I'm making screenshots of each one of these, and I pause the game in Unity when it's when the guitar is at a good rotated position for a screenshot. These screenshots are used to make the icons. You can see right now all the icons are blank for those different bases because they don't exist. Okay, let's get rid of that picture. Okay, hang up these bases. You can see this huge list of bases and guitars that I have to hang up because I've been doing this as I've been building them, and it's I don't know if very many people would buy this many guitars in a real game. It would cost a lot of money, but it's possible. And if you're a guitar collector, maybe one of your goals for the game. Okay, creating the placeholder icons by duplicating other ones and just naming them properly. Now I open them all up in Photoshop. And then I open up the screenshots that I made. And I have a macro set up to help me do this quicker. I can see I just go to Actions. It rotates it, and then I have to crop it, which I have, you can see 130 by 130 for the cropping size, so it automatically resizes it also. Then I drag it over into the placeholder, save it. Okay, then I go back to the game, run it, bigger screen this time, so I can see the icons better. Let's take a look at them. There they are. So see them in this list. Okay, so all that stuff's done. I'm quitting all the programs, make sure everything is saved, and then I have to we'll mark that off in my list as being done. Then I have to commit it to my GitHub repository. Well, committing it to Git, all the new files and changed files. And then push it to GitHub. And that is how a single model of guitar gets created with multiple colors. Thanks for watching.